that you must tell a story. No, you don't have to tell any story. You have to play changes. That's it. You do not have to start down here and end up at a volcanic eruption. That's boring. When I see players doing that all the time, I say, what the hell are you doing? I don't care about your false emotion. We don't care that you got angry by the end of your solo. Stop.
That's Eric Alexander, who by any measure is one of the top saxophonists in the world. Today, we are talking about his new course, 21 Major Key Explorations. And in this video, Eric gives some of the best advice anyone wanting to learn jazz improvisation needs to hear. One of the things I love about Eric is his amazing ability to communicate so clearly, directly, and candidly. He gets right to the point. This is probably my favorite interview that I've done on this channel, and I'm sure you're gonna love it too.
And then you went on to say, the reality is that without using common recognizable language, at least to some degree, improvisers have little or no chance of connecting with their audience or with their fellow musicians for that matter.
That's absolutely true. I'll stand on that one. The fundamental purpose of the book, as I said in the preface to it, really is to attempt to get developing players to learn technique and learn how to play through chord progressions with proper phrasing and articulation vis-a-vis material that is part of the language or the syntax of modern jazz. We make this mistake all the time. We think we have a chord scale relationship, and therefore any note in that scale will function just as well as any other note in any random order. What a falsehood. That's like throwing 10 words on the ground and praying for success. So I throw and monkey, dog, post office, 8, Frenchman, all these words on the ground, and that's what it sounds like. Gibberish. The words, the notes have to be put together in an order so that it's communicable language. In this case, oral language, not written. But yeah, monkey on a typewriter is not going to get it 99% of the time. And even one word in the midst of a bunch of mumbo jumbo, well, it has no significance anyway. So in jazz music, content is king. We want everything we play to be a bit or a piece of recognizable language. And I noticed early on that the players I really gravitated toward in terms of, copying their stuff or trying to learn their style were the players that had the greatest content. So therefore I was, of course you got Charlie Parker, but there were players that were easier to get to because they weren't so obtuse or abstract. He's a little abstract, so I'd gravitate to Sonny Stitt or Hank Mobley or, those would be the two primary. John Coltrane too. Very lucid, very clear, especially his earlier recordings, the lines, you can hear every single note in the line. And every phrase, if I were to take it out of the solo, transpose it through 12 keys, and try to utilize it exactly as I heard it, and then later with a manipulated version of what I had heard, never failed. They're like golden nuggets, perfect phrases. And it goes further than that, because it's not just that the other musicians can hear that you're talking their language. The most important result is that the player himself or herself, as they're presenting the material, can feel that they're actually making sense. Just like a child when he first learns to speak and he can say over and over, I want ice cream, I want ice cream. He knows that he's communicating, as simple as it is. And it's effective. He might not get it, but they know what he's saying. So when I'm speaking clear language, I can feel it too. Therefore, my confidence level goes up. Therefore, my whole presentation, tone, articulation goes up. And then I'll start weeding out things that aren't real language. The progression becomes fast. You start to only want to play things that make sense and never to play something that doesn't make sense. Why would you? So you sit there and you wait for something to come to you and then you play it. And even, Grandma Ruth and the cousins and the inbred aunties from Wales or whoever shows up, they all know whether you're playing good changes or not too, even though they couldn't explain why. They'll just go home and say, I liked that one better than that one, but they know what they heard. Even lay people are aware when they hear two saxophonists, for instance, playing, and one is just doing gobbledygook and the other one's actually playing. Everybody knows. So it's just so very important. We need to we need to train with real language.
Allow me to take this opportunity to tell you more about 21 Major Key Explorations. It's a video course with a digital downloadable book and a collection of backing tracks in all keys. Each of the 21 jazz language phrases has its own video, with Eric demonstrating the line and also explaining its significance, where it came from, how and where to use it when soloing, all presented with Eric's direct and personal style. The book has all the patterns transcribed into all 12 keys, and the backing tracks come in 3 different tempos, also in all 12 keys. Eric has also transcribed 2 of his improvised solos, demonstrating how he implements these bits of language in real time. And there's a physical copy of the book available if you're like me and don't really like reading music on a screen. The content of 21 Major Key Explorations is suitable for anyone studying jazz improvisation on any instrument at any level, really. The material in there will give you quality stuff to work on for years. Once you enroll in the course, you get lifetime access in the BetterSax members area, which uses the best online course interface in the industry. I'm so honored to be able to make available this incredible content from one of my favorite living saxophonists on BetterSax.com. But I'm also thrilled because I know how much this course is going to help every single student who takes it. For a limited time, use coupon code MKE21 to save 21%. There's a link in the description below to get enrolled.
So the one school you're mentioning is like where it's like, okay, this scale works over this chord, just play those notes. But then there's another kind of thing in jazz education where it's like this concept that everything you play has to be an original improvised thought. And that is a big trap, I know, for a lot of people.
I don't, Jay, well, I'm glad you said it, not me. So now I can just expand upon your thought. And I don't want to alienate anyone. There's what you just said. Yeah, an original thought. Or that it has to be something that just appeared out of thin air. You know, like an angel will piss on your head and suddenly you're going to play the most perfect freaking altered lick of all time. It's just not the way it works. It is not the way it works. Number one, we're dealing with 12 notes, and there are ways to order them that are pleasant and ways to order them that are not, harmonious. There are harmonious ways and non-harmonious. And then we have language. So I like to explain to my students that it's like impromptu speaking. You know, I used to be on the debate team when I was in high school, and when you had to do impromptu speaking, you would walk into a room and the judge would hand you a topic and they would say, go. You didn't even have 10 seconds to formulate. And so the idea was, okay, here I go. I am impromptu. I am improvising, but I have to communicate, and I'm not allowed to stutter. I'm not allowed to say, like, I was thinking, so you already lose. You're done. So they'd hand me a card and it would say, sea slugs. Ladies and gentlemen, I find it to be profoundly important, yet often overlooked. This topic, the plight of the sea slug. See, I would have to go into it like that. And then you get a nice laugh. Look at that jackass. He's improvising about sea slugs, and he knows nothing about, in the case of jazz solo, we do know something about it. And we are improvising. We are using resonant, understandable language, but we are reordering it based on the topic. So every tune is a new topic. You must talk about it differently. You can't talk about Cherokee on impressions. So you have a topic and you have a system for speaking. So I don't like that other approach. That's just horrifying to me.
That's a great metaphor. Each tune is a topic, and maybe you could even say like each tempo is sort of
a chord change,
right?
Or yes,
style
or key.
Groove.
You've got all these components that are fundamental and they are fixed. You know, you have the chord progression, you have the harmonic rhythm of the tune, you have the melody. Of course, we're free to alter it, personalize it, and the tempo, like you said. Now here comes the more improvisation, though. You're actually standing in a quartet, playing live. There are distractions. There are people talking while you're trying to think. The drummer plays a fill that you might like or might not. All of this incoming fire forces you. It necessitates the ability to think on your feet and to improvise. but you got to play by the rules still. Because just because the drummer went spadak when you didn't want to hear it, that doesn't mean you can play E flat minor when you have, whatever, G major 7. Well, maybe you can. Actually, that would work. That's tritone 2-5-2. We could get away with it, but you can't lose your head. George Coleman always talks about that. You've got to have a brain to play this music. You've got to think. You don't play something and then think about whether it was good or not later. When you play something, you already know it's going to be good because you heard it and you executed it. The minute it's coming out, you know it's good. And that doesn't mean you played a solo of worked out licks. That's another total falsehood when people say that person only plays worked out licks. That is impossible. I tried it once. I was in the recording studio with Harold Mabern at Rudy Van Gelder's, and we went back in after a session. This is the only time with that man ever where he went back to fix a couple things. And primarily it's because I sucked on a couple of solos, which was, I'm not saying I always play good solos, but it was unusual that it would be that messed up. So I actually worked out a solo. Only time in my life I worked it out from beginning to end. Guess what happened? Every take broke down. It took me like 2 hours to finish because it is impossible to play a good memorized solo with all these incoming influences. So don't believe that hype. That's just silly. There's never been a great player in the history of jazz that played worked out licks solos. Can't be done. It's impossible. You must improvise to play jazz music anyway, so stop worrying about it.
So this is like a way of showing students, this is stuff that you practiced when you were developing and kind of helps you. Is that how it worked?
Well, Jay, it's even more than that. Yes, but more. This is the kind of stuff that I practice every single day. People say, what do you practice? The better answer is, what don't I practice? Or there is no. Now, I will say, okay, when I was from 19 to 25, I would go sit on my butt, and for 6 hours, I'd actually follow a formula. I'd make sure I'm almost on the clock. Like I'll do 20 minutes of long tones, the same routine every day. Then I'll play through the melodies and chord progressions to like 100 tunes real fast. Like if I get through one chorus, then I move on because I had a tune list and I wanted to make sure that I would never forget a tune that I had learned. I would think, what's the point of learning a tune if then I can't remember it when they call it a year from now? So I was pretty comprehensive. And then I would take melodic and or harmonic patterns or just concepts and throw them over the chord changes in the tunes, play them through the keys. Yeah, I was very regimented in that respect. But what do I do today? The exact same thing, but sort of in random order. So whatever comes into my mind, it's usually a tune. I like to use tunes as practice material because what we play in this music is tunes. Standards, originals, jazz originals, or even our own. God forbid, most of them are bad. Let's be honest. But I'll sit down and I'll say, I just feel like Stella by Starlight. And then the kind of stuff that's in that book, it's all coming out. I'll play the tune rubato, to begin with, almost like a cadenza. I'll just linger right there on the concert E half diminished for 10 minutes, playing everything I know. And then I'll try playing it in time or in different grooves with different chord alterations, different tempos, different time signatures, 3/4. The type of material that's in this book is not something that I used to do. This is what I do constantly. I'll pick up my horn and I'll have an idea in my head and I'm getting ready to go play it in the key of G. I say, nope. I start right off in D flat or B. I start working it into that key and then I'm going to take it through 12 keys. And it's usually just a little pebble. It's not like a symphony, it's just like one of the little 21 patterns that's in the book. But by the way, each pattern contains at least 2 or 3 nuggets that you could cut out of it. They're composite patterns, but then you have all of those and each one contains little nuggets. So you've got a lot of stuff. You just start mixing and matching. And remember, content is king. You don't have to write a novel and you don't have to have a plot. That's another mystery. Another myth that you must tell a story. No, you don't have to tell any story. You have to play changes. That's it. You do not have to start down here and end up at a volcanic eruption. That's boring. When I see players doing that all the time, I say, what the hell are you doing? I don't care about your false emotion. We don't care that you got angry by the end of your solo. Stop. You play changes, you play good ideas, you play in time with other human beings with empathy and connectivity, and it comes out so great. It's a pure democracy, and they are going to throw you off while you're going. You're going to throw them off. But the overall thing, as a horn player, you have, why is it a dirty word or a dirty sentence? It should not be. You have to play changes, period. End of story. And I'm so tired of this term, he plays out, he plays in. That is horse crap. When you hear the most maniacal, extended, and abstract John Coltrane solo, what he is doing is piling other changes on top of what you hear. He is not playing random madness. When you hear Joe Henderson improvising on a blues and you don't know what it is, it's not out, it's even more in. He's just in his head thinking about other changes. So I am tired, very tired of this. They play out, they play in. Bull crap. Anybody that plays good is in, and the people that you think are out are more in. They're microscoping something and putting more stuff in it.
Can you give students some tips on how to approach your content, in this book?
Absolutely. Students, please don't feel sheepish about firing this stuff off just as it's written, right where it sounds best. See, we have this strange compulsion. We can play things that sound good, and we often don't. We just don't play them because it's almost as if we're afraid of success, not fear of failure. The fear of failure should be starting to play a solo and not having a clue about what you're going to do. In the beginning stages, the most important thing, really for your confidence, but also for people around you and how they perceive you, is to play things that sound good. I make a mention of it during the loop explanation, the looping pattern explanation. You can fire that off on 8 bars of rhythm changes. The first 8 bars, it doesn't fit perfectly, but pretty damn close. And most certainly the first 4 bars, fire it right off. If you start practicing in the key of C, if you're on tenor and you're playing the looping pattern in your C, concert B flat, and you're playing This I Dig of You or Samba de Orfeo in B flat, fire at will, because you got a lot of tunes that just linger on a major tonality for a while, and these things will work. And what's going to happen is the player will naturally start to personalize these lines, because that's the way it goes. They might not, because the lines have no personality, by the way. I didn't put any dynamic markings or articulations. There is no personality. It's just notes. But here's a fundamental thing. Notes and, numbers rule the world. We know this, not words. Words are deceptive. Numbers in music is number-related math. These are all numbers or notes that function perfectly. So once you start going, well, that's how I do it, and the other person goes, it's just natural that things start to be twisted by your own physiology and your own way of thinking. Just as when someone says, man, you know what? That was really bad. And the other guy says, man, that was bad. There you go. Total opposite meaning. You will have your own thing going. You don't need dynamic markings. You don't need articulation. You're just going to play the stuff. It's going to start to change. And then you'll find yourself, the players will find themselves even adding to or taking away, and therefore coming up with something that's unrecognizable as what it was in the beginning. And it will happen. This is the way it goes. Unrecognizable. You'll be playing one of these sequences, and there'll be a part where you'll say to yourself, oh, I kind of like that part right there. And the player should say, well, what is it actually? Oh, it's an augmented triad. I mean, for instance, I'm just speaking off the top of my head. Oh, that's an augmented triad on a dominant chord. And let's say, well, the way I wrote it was, just straight down. They'll say, oh, I want to go up and then resolve from the augmented fifth. It's unrecognizable. So people need to just first start by not being ashamed to play these things as written, so that they're getting their stuff together. And then when when the little muse comes to you and you think, oh, Henry, that's nice, I shall change it a little bit. Well, you'll be amazed at the results. Amazed. Or something's written in eighth notes. I'll play it as 16th notes. I'll blast it double fast. See how that sounds. Whatever. But Rome wasn't built in a day, and nobody's going to learn how to speak jazz language from one book. So don't worry about it. Just play it, and it will come. You know, if you play it, it will come. If you play nonsense, it's not going to come. You're just going to get accustomed to playing nonsense, and nothing will grow. It'll just sit there under the dirt. You've got to water the seed.
A big thank you to Eric Alexander for collaborating with me and BetterSax on this project and for sharing with all of us his vast knowledge and experience in this video. If you'd like to learn more about Eric's method for studying jazz improvisation, get enrolled in 21 major key explorations over at BetterSax.com. Use coupon code MKE21 to save 21%. There is a link in the description below. And if you're a saxophone player that is somehow unfamiliar with Eric's playing, I strongly recommend you go check out his extensive library of recordings as a leader and a sideman. It's all excellent stuff that you're gonna enjoy. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video.
I realized after screwing around with the alto a little bit too, the rhythm changes is much better in the key of G than it is in C. Just a little bit.